it's a family tradition for them. And isn't that what rodeo really promotes, is family togetherness and family traditions and values? It's a family affair for these Park City families to come to my hometown rodeo, and it sells out every year. And we are grateful for them. We're grateful for them selling out that rodeo. We make room for them in the Western industry.
Yeah. Well, we know the more people that are there as a competitor, the more fans there, the more people you got there, the more added money there's going to be, the more the prize is going to be, and what the people that stereotype, the Jason Aldean, Kenny Chesney dressed fans in the crowd. Well, guess what? They're the added money. You should go campaigning to get every one of their buddies there too. You know what I mean? Guys, welcome to another episode of the BioMane Scoop. We are having some remote access today. We're all in different areas, and we've got Renae Cowley as our special guest today. You've got the usuals, Cole and Ladd. We got Bryce in the background running tech. We had some issues up at the studio, so we just went remote from the laptop. So a little different look this time, but we're happy to have you, Renae. Welcome on the show.
Thanks, guys. I feel like this is kind of landmark. This is historic. This is your first remote podcast you've done, and the first with a female guest. So
I know we had to
pioneer.
Be politically correct in our podcast.
Diversifying is what you're doing.
Diversify, exactly.
Thanks, you guys, for having me on. I'm really excited to be on the podcast and really to be a part of the BioMane team, the BioMane family. It's been really a lot of fun to be associated with your brand, and I love that it's a Utah company, a family company. Cole, you've got family members here, and you and Ladd have been friends long before the company was a company, and I just love that. I think that that's really a good representation of sort of the Western lifestyle, too, is the connections and the family relations that we all bring into our everyday lives and businesses.
Well, I appreciate that, and I totally agree. It's funny because, how many horse people are there in the States and the world? And really, especially when you get into your own disciplines, what you like to compete in and what your hobby is pretty tight knit. How many jackpots do we go throughout the year where it's in Nevada, Utah, Idaho, they're down to Arizona and Vegas, all over, and you're still kind of compete. You can go down to Texas and still compete against the same guys that you can compete with at home. It's tight knit and word travels fast, so all the more reason to be a good person and an honest person. So
everybody knows somebody. So when I flew into Vegas last night, I ran into two judges that were getting ready to go to South Point from Texas that are judging a futurity, and they all knew Brady Weaver really well, and we just talked to Brady. And so if you see somebody in cowboy hats, like you said, as small knit as our community is, they're going to know somebody that we do, and it's pretty easy to connect those dots.
And speaking of which, Ladd and I go way back. I knew Ladd, I'm not even going to say how long ago, but it's been a minute. I think I knew you right off your mission. Was that right?
Freshly off the mission. Yep.
Freshie. Yeah.
We're fresh. Let's touch on that. I've heard stories, just you borrowing a horse. You were so Renae did the queening deal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for your viewers that don't know me and haven't met me, hi, I'm Renae. Thanks for the intro, Cole. So I was a former Miss Rodeo Utah. Again, 1,000 years ago, it was 2008. Now I barrel race professionally and have kind of a long horse history even before that. But I kind of met Ladd about the time I was Miss Rodeo Ogden, competing for Miss Rodeo Utah. And then when I was Miss Rodeo Utah, it was kind of one of those things where I was really dedicated to it, and I really wanted to win Miss Rodeo Utah. And so I knew if I had made it to America that they have the draw horse competition in horsemanship. And so I knew that I'd have to get on, just totally cold, some random horse I've never been on, and do a reining pattern on it.
Oh, so the draw horses, you don't take your horse. You draw out of a hat. That's the horse you get.
That's right. Sure. And used to, they would have the picket man's horses, and those were kind of nasty. But now they have pretty nice, younger quarter horses that are kind of just starting out. And so they're really decent quality now, but just younger horses typically. So that's kind of a step up. So anyone that I knew that had horses, and would answer my phone calls. I'd ask them if I could go just lope their horses around, and just so I could practice with a draw horse. And so Lad and his cousin were nice enough to let me do that. And then I had these nice reining horses. But when you're a title holder, when you're Miss Rodeo Ogden, Miss Rodeo Utah, you've got to go to all these rodeos and, push calves and, do presentation rides in the grand entry, carry flags. And some of these reining horses, they just can't do it. Like, I had this 16-hand reining horse shotgun, and he was like this big, tough dude, but he was afraid of his own shadow. So I would borrow horses. And so Lad and his cousin let me borrow this one horse. And I feel like I told them I was going to take it to the Ogden Rodeo, but they thought I was bringing it home every night, and I didn't. I kept it in my place. So they're the nicest people alive. And they're like, I think this queen stole our horse. Like, we don't know where it is. I think they might have been entered in the Ogden Rodeo. So, like, by day 4 of the Ogden Rodeo, they're like, oh, there's our horse, home run. he was well taken.
No, it was a team rail course, but it was one less horse off the feed bill. So we're like, sweet.
Yeah. I remember Hugh was like, yeah, he just didn't come home for like a week, and we weren't sure. And he was pretty, though. Like, home run, I had this great picture of me on home run. That was a nice bay. I liked him.
He was good. He's got quite the story. I'll tell it real quick. He came from Billings. The reason we got him is because, he looked good, but I think he bucked the guy off or reared up in the pen when they were selling him. So I think they got him bought for, I think it was either $500 or $1,000. And we knew he was going to be good, so.
Yeah.
Sure, Renae, take this one. It bucked the guy up in the sale ring.
He was good for me.
We got it all out of him. That was a good head horse.
He was nice. He was pretty.
Oh, that's great.
But they were great friends.
You still running barrels? You still have Stryker? What do you got?
Yes, we still have Stryker. So, I'll kind of give you a little bit of backstory, right? So, it was Miss Rodeo Utah, finished college, kind of didn't really ride a lot right after Miss Rodeo Utah because I was trying to finish up college. Immediately went into the workforce in my profession. And then about 2 years after that, I got my MBA degree. And that was like one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life was trying to work and get a graduate degree at the same time. And I kind of like made this deal with myself that, okay, if I can get through this, I need like a reward at the end. I need like a light at the end of the tunnel. So I was like, I'm going to start competing in horses again. But what am I going to do? Should I go back to like reining horses, or should I try something else? And I kind of looked at it, and I had a girlfriend that was showing English and like jumping horses. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Maybe I'll like totally go that direction. It's like, well, maybe I'll do cutting horses. And well, that's kind of like reining horses. It's kind of the same bloodlines in many ways. And then I was like, you know what? Barrel racing. I still really loved rodeo. I still had that in my heart. I was like, yeah, that's for me. So having never really been on a barrel horse before, I decided like, yeah, I'm going to do barrel racing. So I started buying a couple of just like flip horses. Like I'd just buy a horse on KSL classifieds, and I'd put 90 days on it, and I'd turn around and sell it, and just trying to like save up some money so I could buy a really, really nice barrel horse. And, having listened to some of your other podcasts, I really identified with talking about like horses on a budget and how to do so economically and otherwise, and kind of some of the advice you guys have been giving. And I'll never forget this one circumstance I was in when I was like, okay, barrel racing, here we go. I just need a barrel horse. So where do I go? So someone gave me the number of a horse broker, and I called this person, and I was like, yeah, I'm never really run barrels before, but like I'm going to do this thing, and I want to qualify for the circuit finals, and like I want to do as much as I can with it. And this person said, well, what's your budget? And I told her, and for me, this was like a lot of money, right? Like I just getting out of graduate school, and I'm like just starting out in my career, and like I thought I had this like budget, right? And I tell her, and she's like, oh, you can't possibly get a nice barrel horse for that amount of money. It's ridiculous. And someone was with him, and she's like, hey, do you think that this person can get a nice barrel horse for this amount of money? And I just was humiliated in this phone call. I was really upset about it.
What year was this, Renae?
Oh, this had to have been 2018. This was 2017, maybe. It was about 2017. So I'm like a little bit deflated, but, when I was like really young and showing in 4-H and otherwise, all these other kids in high school rodeo when I was queening and in 4-H and junior posse, all these kids had like really nice trucks and trailers. And we always had broke down Fords and rested out trailers and discount horses. And, you know, I always found deals. You know, my mom made a lot of my rodeo queen clothes, and we just had to do everything on a budget. And so I know that my mom would tell me, like, to make me feel better about our situation, that, Renae, it's not like what you pull up to the rodeo in, it's what you pull out of the trailer that matters. And so I just kind of learned, like, even though we don't have like the money that maybe my competitors do, I definitely have the work ethic that they don't. And so I would always outwork them and just kind of find ways to do it. And when I was in high school, we traded lessons for, you know, loping horses and colts and otherwise. So back to my barrel story of trying to find Stryker. I was like, okay, these people won't help me find my horse. So I just need like a fast horse. Like, I'm enough of a hand. I think I can teach it to turn around a barrel, right? Like, I'm still a little naive. And I was like, I just need a fast horse. Who has fast horses? Okay, like racehorse people have fast horses. So I called my buddy up in Idaho, where the two of you are from. And I was,
a good guy.
I need a team roper of all things. He's also,
Let us toot our own horn for a minute.
yeah, exactly. So I just asked him, I was like, do you have anything that's fast that's for sale? Like, I'm gonna barrel race on this thing, and do you have anything that's for sale? He's like, yeah, I've got this one. Like, I think I can let this one go. And so he brings it down. The minute he unloads this giant 16-hand gray off the trailer, I was like, that's it. That's the one. That's the one. And so, having never been on a barrel horse, now I just bought a race horse. And I'm like, I'm going to teach it to barrel race, and I'm going to start entering pro rodeos. So this is like typical Renae, right? I'm always like, I dive in head first. I don't get intimidated about the kind of bearers in front of me. So I bought him in like August or September. I entered like 3 jackpots and then like 2 semi-pro rodeos, like the RMPRAs or whatever they're called now. Mm-hmm. And then that next year, I started entering pro rodeos, and I won the performance at my very first pro rodeo with this horse. No, I get that that's not everyone's like storied situation for sure. But like, he was just a special horse. I know deep in my heart that I got very, very lucky, but I had spent those like 4 or 5 months really learning everything that I could and being humble and asking anyone that would, you know, answer my phone call for help and training and advice and otherwise. And so I filled my permit in under 10 rodeos and then just kind of started going from there. And so anyway, I guess that's a long-winded story to say like how I got into racing and where we are now.
That's great. And you still got Stryker?
We still have Stryker. Now, Lad, do you know that Cole almost fired me from the BioMane team over Stryker's tail and mane?
I heard rumors that his tail wasn't doing good, but I didn't know it was going to go that far.
Oh, it was bad. It was bad. It was bad. So first of all, Stryker's mane is naturally like really thin and scraggly. And so BioMane makes his thin, scraggly mane grow like a weed. But he looks like Gollum. Like, it's this thin, scraggly mane. So I started cutting it really short, like a racehorse, you know, kind of a homage to his past. I remember Cole once like commented on a post, and he's like, "Did you cut his mane?" Yeah, I did. But what happened this last fall was, look, I got a little sidetracked with like wedding bliss, right? Like, I was a little caught up in myself with wedding excitement and planning. I probably didn't bathe their tails in about 2 months. And they're just in their tail bags for about 2 months. And so when I took them out and, you know, I had to wash them and comb out all the snarls and use my BioMane detangler and shampoo and conditioner. And that was all fine, but I got kind of lazy and I couldn't find any more tail bags at the moment. And I was just like running late for something. And so I just braided it and like turned them out. Huge mistake. Huge mistake. Stryker got his tail caught in a It was so bad. It was such a stupid idea. I mean, you think I've seen enough tutorial videos from you guys that I would know better. So I
more tutorials.
I turn him out and he gets this braid hung in a gate and he ripped it out to about his hock. It's looking okay right now. So it's been 6 months since that happened. It's actually looking really nice. Like, but I sent a picture to Cole. I'm like, "Are you going to fire me?" And he just writes back like one word, "probation." And I was like, "Oh no, oh no."
Yeah. I'm
But
just looking for the 6 month later picture to see his tail to see if we can lift probation.
Before and after pictures will be good to see.
Yeah, I'll send them. I'll post them. I'll send them. But the others are tail draggers, right? So that's why maybe I was left on probation, not just straight fired from the BioMane family.
Well, that's the worst.
On the B team.
Yeah.
We've got some B teams at the house. We get new ones, and they're not in the best shape and don't have the greatest hair. And then we get them on the feed program and start giving them a scoop a day, and all of a sudden the ugly goes away.
Yeah. Unicorn transformation. That's definitely what I've always seen.
Oh, man. So let's talk about your profession. Like, you're kind of a politician almost.
I don't know that I am self-loathing enough to be a politician, but
yeah, I don't want to do that. You're amongst politicians a lot.
There you go. There you go.
That's the politically correct way to say that. Very nice.
So over, many, many years, these different industries have done sort of profession approval studies, right? And so they have listed what the most trusted professions are and what the least trusted professions are. And it goes like this. The least trusted profession, the bottom three are used car salesman. Next least trusted is a politician. The next least trusted after that is a lobbyist. And that's what I do. So
bronze medal for you.
I love it. Well, it kind of feeds my soul though, right? Because being a lobbyist means that companies, corporations, nonprofits, they hire me to help them navigate a political process. And so kind of like an accountant, right? You could do your own taxes, but you'd probably hire someone that knows tax law and knows the process of doing your taxes. And you could represent yourself in court, but you'd probably hire an attorney who knows kind of the process and kind of the legal meanderings there. It's kind of like a lobbyist. I just know the process really well.
Cool.
That's what I do. And so it feeds my competitive nature too, because I love at the end of the day, you've won or you've lost. Your bill passed or it didn't. You got your, appropriation from the government, the money from the government, or you didn't. Your candidate won or they lost. I love that black and white scorecard. It's just like rodeo, right? You won, you placed, you didn't. And I like that. And it resets often, in Utah, which is where I work, our legislative sessions every year. So every year I get another chance to sort of reset that scoreboard and try again and do something different. And it's really a lot of fun for me. But what it means is I get to be involved in a whole bunch of different industries, and I do some work kind of pro bono and just volunteer because I think it's important. And some of it, I get paid for, and it's a great living and it's really a lot of fun. And I enjoy government, and I'm so grateful and so proud to live in this country and have the process that we have where when organized citizens come up to the Capitol and they try to advocate for this or that, they win. 100% of the time they win. Even over, high-powered lobbyists like myself. If I go up against a group of well-organized citizens, 10 out of 10, I always lose. And I think that that's the way it should be.
That's really good insight.
Wow, that's really good.
I think that's going back to what you said about why you like your job and why you like rodeo, it is black and white. That's one thing that I do like about, we're ropers, we team rope, but essentially it's a rodeo event. You either lose or you don't, and it's not cheap to enter. It's not cheap to get there, especially now with fuel. I know 4 or 5 guys already that I've talked to that aren't rodeoing this summer because of the fuel expense. But it's not cheap to enter. You work your butt off to get good, and it's still black and white. If you don't win, it stings. And it's not like a ball game or something where you lose. Dang it, oh well, we'll get them next time. It's man, this hurt. I was fully committed. I'm financially committed, and it'd be the same for your profession. I mean, you got skin in the game in every deal you're in, but I think that's what's enticing, and I think that's too what scares people away from doing it. Is for one, it's not cheap. I think you can do it on a cheaper budget than what some do, but I think that's what's enticing about it is it's competitive and you've got to have skin in the game to play. You know what I mean? You don't just join a team and you might be the best on the team. You might be mediocre, but your team still might win. It's no, if you're not the best that day, you do not win, and it doesn't matter what anybody else does. at the end of the day, if you don't win, you don't win, and you lost money, and that's what's enticing to go back and do it again.
Is it pretty reviewable? So like on one of the jobs you have, like if you guys don't win, is it to go back and see where mistakes were made? Or is it kind of one of those deals where it's just, well, we lost, there's not much we could have done about it? Or can you kind of, like rodeo, you can kind of replay and see how you could do better at it?
Exactly right, lad. And so in government and politics, there's a lot of perceptions out there about what happens in the process and otherwise. And, stereotypes are always grounded in some form of reality. Did you guys just both sneeze at the same time?
No.
Oh, that was funny. Okay. You're very in sync. But there's stereotypes are always grounded in some form of reality. But the truth of the matter is, like, it's a pretty public process. Whenever I testify in a committee, it's recorded, it's broadcast live. Any Joe Schmo, anyone from the public that wants to come observe or even testify themselves in the committee, they're welcome to come to the Capitol. It's all open and public process. So there's plenty of like instant recap and review. A lot of times what happens is like we just didn't have enough data or information or facts, that we could present to show our side or our argument, whatever. And Cole, kind of what you were saying about maybe it can be prohibitive because it's expensive to rodeo and there's barriers to it. I think a lot of people feel that way about politics and government too. I think they get a little scared to get involved and to engage themselves because they feel like it's a really tall mountain to climb and that they don't know how to get engaged and they don't know who to talk to and they don't know what's appropriate or what's allowed. And so that's one thing that I really enjoy doing. I speak to a lot of civic groups, high schools, college students, and otherwise about how to get engaged and get involved in the political process. And again, that's like what makes it work. That's what makes it great, is that anybody, don't have to be a lobbyist, anyone who cares about some issue or some law can come up. They can talk to their legislator, they can testify in a committee, they can present, they can even come up with an idea of a new bill they want to sponsor and talk to their legislator about it and kind of get that organized. And so I think that's, again, like such a great thing about our government and kind of like rodeo. Like, I wasn't intimidated to start rodeoing. I just sort of found the path and I tried and I failed, but I knew that was something I wanted to do. And I just go back to the same thing with politics. Like, it is possible to get involved. You can be effective in it. You just need to take that first step.
I think that's great. It's great advice. Let's kind of stay on the politics kick for a minute. I was going to look up, I saw a quote and I thought I had it on my phone. I was going to look it up, but I can't find it. It essentially says the equine industry is X and X $1 billion a year industry. And it compares it to other very popular and very, what you would think, high gross income or high gross money spent in that industry, and it's the equine industry as a whole trumps it. But I feel like you got to be a part of it. You got to be in the industry, have a be participating in the industry to understand this point of view. But I feel like the equine industry, and maybe I'm looking at it from a rodeo perspective, because I understand not every equine event or competition uses animals that get roped, that get tied up, that get rode. I get that. But I feel like we have a pretty small voice for the amount of people and the amount of money spent in the equine industry on horses. I feel like we got a pretty small voice. And again, this is me being not in that realm. You're up on Capitol Hill, heck of a lot more than I am, but I feel like we've got a small voice. I don't want to sound dumb, but by saying like in Washington, but in politics and in government, I feel like we have a small voice. And the reason I say that is I feel like every rodeo you go to, there's people campaigning against it, hating on it. Every county fairgrounds that has an arena, a racetrack, boarding facility, I feel like is hanging by a thread financially from the community or the city, because they're looking at we could doze all that and put bike trails or a kids park or something. How do we, what's your advice? Like as far as voicing our opinions and getting more of a stronger following, I guess. Like the people that aren't horse people, I feel like if you're not horse people, you're kind of maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe that's more rodeo. If you're not for rodeo, you're kind of against rodeo because you see it as abuse to animals and that. But like, how does the horse industry as a whole, sorry, this is really long-winded, but how does the horse industry as a whole get more traction and more, I don't want to say approval but at the same time, it kind of is. How do we get more approval and backing to where it should be more popular? Like rodeos, I know in Utah, sell out, but I feel like there's so much more acceptance that there could be and a larger presence for it. Like our area in southern Utah, I don't see why there's not multiple big indoor barns and big training facilities, and the county dumping a ton of money into, and the city putting a bunch of money into facilities because the people are here, the horses are here. You know what I mean? Does that make sense at all?
Oh, Cole, it does. I have so much to say about this. We could do 3 podcasts on this issue. I mean, there's so many things that we as horse enthusiasts and, rodeo enthusiasts can be doing to help protect our industry. Make no mistake, our industry is under attack. It has been for a long time. It continues to be, and it hangs by a thread. And I mean that sincerely. It hangs by a thread. And the only way to save it is by those who understand the industry, those of us who participate in it, to also participate and get involved in community outreach and in the political process. So you've touched on so many important topics. And so, one of the biggest threats that we had to the industry too was during COVID. It was during 2020 when so many rodeos were being shut down. Think about the different rodeos y'all compete in. And aside from the jackpots, many of the professional rodeos are sanctioned and organized by cities and counties. So it's sanctioned by politicians. Yeah. And politicians are responsive to their constituents. They need to hear from people. I know I was talking to my buddies at Diamond G and others and Bar T during lockdown about what are we going to do to get these cities open. And I know when Eagle Mountain was the first rodeo in Utah to go, and it was really touch and go there for a while, but they were committed to do it because they were hearing from their constituents, the people that vote for them, that they wanted this rodeo to happen. It's an outdoor rodeo. There was opportunity to social distance. They had taken some pretty significant sanitation perspectives. Sorry, my computer's about to die. I'm making sure it's plugged in. They'd taken some precautions to make sure that all their patrons and competitors were going to be safe. And I'm so proud and grateful for that rodeo for going. Every single rodeo that ended up being held in Utah that year, I tried to go to, and I tried to make a point of talking to their committee and to any city council members or mayors that would show up and thank them personally. That was a really difficult moment in our sport. And I'm really grateful for those that have the courage to stand up and to keep this industry going. There's a lot of laws that are proposed also that can hurt our industry. I mean, we can talk all day long about animal rights, but there's a lot of things that make it prohibitive for competitors to go. Like 2018, I believe, was when the federal government tried to pass a law saying that if you held a trailer, you carried a trailer of 26,000 pounds or more, and there was financial incentive for you hauling that trailer, that you had to have a CDL.
Exactly. Yeah. If you were taking your kid to a high school or a junior rodeo that they could win $12 at, you had to have a CDL. And
that was dangerous for our industry. It was super dangerous. And so what ended up happening is that the kind of rodeo and equine industry banded together. They started a letter writing campaign. They started outreach to their congressmen, and we got a whole bunch of exemptions. I'll be honest with you, it doesn't cover everybody. So I encourage people to know the law. I'm not going to counsel anyone on what the law is, but know the law. Know what's going on. You need to call your local highway authority and know what the law is. But there is also sort of, and I'll just say this, there's kind of a lack of enforcement on that too. I don't want anyone to rest on their laurels and say, oh, I'm not going to get caught. when you stop at a port and think that or a way station and think that you're going to get away with it, you just need to know the law. But that was a huge threat to our industry, adding additional requirements and burdens. I mean, gas prices right now, right? That's going to be maybe cost prohibitive for a lot of rodeo competitors this summer, and we'll see how that goes. But it all starts with kind of outreach. I was going to say one more thing about local facilities being closed. Up where I'm from, Davis County, Utah, I grew up in 4-H. 4-H was my gateway drug to horses. I have so many wonderful memories of learning and growing and making friends in 4-H, and it taught me horsemanship, taught me leadership. I have a great deal of respect and appreciation for the 4-H program. It was all at this county facility, which is now closed. They're turning it into, I think the last I heard was it was going to be soccer fields and it was going to be basketball. But the reason why they closed it was they said they're losing money on it. I would dare say there is not a county or city park in the country that makes money. They're public assets.
Exactly.
They're a public asset. They help contribute to the local economy. Would you rather have a kid in soccer and I'm not dogging on soccer, right? Soccer's great. If that's your deal, then more power to you. Horses are my deal, and so I'm pretty passionate about it. Would you rather have a kid who just needs to buy a couple soccer balls, some cleats, a uniform, and some pads once a year? Or would you rather incentivize economic impacts of someone who has to buy a $20,000 horse and feed it and shoe it and pay the property tax on the pastures and the water and the training and the saddles and the tack and equipment? And I'm not even getting started in all the costs that it takes to have a horse. But what would you rather incentivize in your community?
Exactly. That's a great point. I found that quote someone through my phone. It says, most horse owners don't realize the horse industry is a $122 billion a year industry. To put this into context, the NFL is $9.8 billion a year, which makes us 12 times the size. We're the largest recreational entity in the U.S., and Western horses make up close to 80% of the domestic horse population. We're the largest equine industry.
Smaller platform.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And that's what this says. We're the largest equine industry and demographic with the smallest voice in Washington. We could and should be one of the most powerful lobbies in the U.S. We should not be playing defense to animal rights extremists, which I agree 100%. And it ends with the time to save our industry is now before it's truly too late. But I think you summed that up to a T right there. And I like the analogy that you put out there about, if communities, it takes money to run communities, and people have to be spending money, and not to say, like you said, my little guy's in soccer and baseball right now. He loves roping and he loves riding horses, and he's going to do that too. But from a community and political standpoint on how can we generate more money coming into our local economies, the horse deal is a cash cow. Mm-hmm. If you got a horse, you covered the majority of them, but not even to mention it costs more to register larger vehicles, trucks. It costs more to register the trailers, and that's in Utah. I mean, back in God's country, Idaho, it's, once every 5 to 10 years, but here in Utah, you got to register them every year. So, I know, but
touche.
But yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, so we just bought a new dually. We just bought I'm getting ready to buy another trailer, and you don't need that to drive your kid to soccer practice, but you sure do to, compete with horses.
That's exactly right.
And so there's an economic multiplier there. So when you're comparing how small our voice is in Washington and in state government, by the way, and local governments are every bit as powerful as the federal government, and they're usually easier to influence.
Yeah.
And so we can't overlook your local governments as well. Like I said, it's these cities that we're putting on rodeos or not putting on rodeos. So it's a city councilman who got elected with 1,100 votes. That's a big deal. That person had a lot of power in seeing if our industry would succeed or not during COVID.
Yeah.
But the difference being that people from other industries, they speak up, they get involved. And you guys know better than anyone that being cowboys and cowgirls, it's a full-time job. And we don't feel like we have a lot of spare time. And It also goes back to a perception that government is sort of unattainable or inaccessible. And that's just not true. That it is so important that we develop relationships with our elected officials and our community as a whole too. Something that I'm a marketing undergraduate, and so I love following like marketing too. So much of this has to do with building relationships with your elected officials. And I mean this sincerely. Reach out to them, call them, email them, ask to come to their office. Especially on a more local level, they will meet with you. I promise they will. If you tell them you're a constituent, most elected officials are very, very accessible. Tell them a little bit about you. Tell them about what you're involved in. Tell them about what you like in your community, what you don't like in your community, things that you want to see better, things that you think they're doing well. They need that feedback. They're hoping for that feedback. And the squeaky wheel gets the grease always. But the same thing in kind of marketing and promotion. And I'm so grateful that you guys are doing this podcast. I think it's wonderful that you're trying to share our slice of life and kind of a love and a passion for horses across all disciplines. And I just think that's great. I think we need more things like this. And I know that that's something that I feel passionately about in kind of my social media presence is sharing how wonderful this lifestyle is with the world. And I love TikTok. I'm all about TikTok. And I'm really getting into it now. And I just think it's the most fun platform for me right now. But I see a lot of people on TikTok talking about like yee and yeehaw cowboys and kind of like making fun of people and like, oh, you're not a real cowboy and this and that. But you know who goes to rodeos? Do you know who goes to the county fair? It's the person who has a 9-to-5. They live in a subdivision and they want to go to the Goodwill or to the Desert Industries and they want to get their boots and, a plaid shirt and they think it's a cowboy shirt and some crumpled up straw hat. And they're going to come to the rodeo and they're going to take their family to dinner before that. And they're going to buy nachos and drinks and rodeo burgers for all 6 of their children or whatever the case may be. And those are the people buying rodeo tickets. Those are the people.
That sounds like a Utah rodeo.
Yeah, it does. That was Pleasant Grove. I was describing Pleasant Grove to you. Except for raising cream.
But that's a great point.
That's our audience. Those are the people that love rodeo. Yeah, we can talk all day long about 7th generation ranchers, and boy, we love and appreciate them too. But the people buying rodeo tickets, the people subscribing to Cowboy Channel, are the ones that fantasize and kind of romanticize about the cowboy lifestyle, and they want to be a part of it in an observational capacity. I love football. Let me just tell you right now, I worship at the church of the NFL. I love football. I've never played it down in my life, and I never will. But I love football, and I subscribe to NFL packages, and I have all my favorite players' jerseys. And I think we need to think about rodeo in that perspective also. I think we need to show love and appreciation and a welcoming open arms to people that go to their county fair once a year and subscribe to the Cowboy Channel. And those are the people that, buy a pair of boots just to go to that rodeo. Those are the people that I really have a lot of appreciation and gratitude towards in our industry. And we need more of that, not less, not shaming people.
Man, that's a great point.
The good part too about the bigger rodeos and even the smaller rodeos, those families from that area know that at that certain date that this rodeo is going on. The Dixie Roundup's going to be here at a certain time. Like it's a tradition for those families to go to that rodeo, whether it's Friday or Saturday night. That's the one rodeo they might go to a year. So when they do get their plaid shirts and everything and show up for the rodeo, it's been a family tradition for those wherever they're at in the States. It's a tradition, which is awesome.
That's a great point. Because, sorry, Renee, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that's exactly right. I mean, look at like my old hometown rodeo, which is the Ogden Pioneer Days, which is so near and dear to my heart. Look at the people that go to that rodeo. Yep. Those are inner city kids. Those are families that live in Ogden. Ogden is pretty urban now. That is not a rural city anymore.
Ogden's rough.
Ogden, see this, and that's my town. You be nice to Ogden. And now I live in Oakley, but the same thing. The people from Park City, right? Bougie ski town Park City. It's a family tradition for them. And isn't that what rodeo really promotes, is family togetherness and family traditions and values? It's a family affair for these Park City families to come to my hometown rodeo. And it sells out every year. And we are grateful for them. We're
Yep.
grateful for them selling out that rodeo. We
Yep.
make room for them in the Western industry.
Well, then
Never-
we know the more people that are there as a competitor, the more fans there, the more people you got there, the more added money there's going to be, the more the prize is going to be, and what the people that stereotype, the Jason Aldean, Kenny Chesney dressed fans in the crowd. Well, guess what? They're the added money. You should go campaigning to get every one of their buddies there too. You know what I mean?
Spot on. Amen, brother. That's it.
Without doing any insider trader type information, do you see anything coming down the hatch bill wise or politically that you could share with us that is either exciting or kind of we should be fearful of or prepare for?
Yeah, there's two things that I see right now as really being a big deal. And we see it in California and in Utah and in a couple other Western states especially. And it's two things. Animal rights. We're never going to get away from this argument of animal rights. So there are animal welfare and there's animal rights. Animal rights mean that people that believe in animal rights, they think that animals need to be treated as sentient beings that are have their own unalienable rights. Basically, like the Constitution of the United States should apply to animals. And they should never be forced to do anything they don't want to do, and that they should never undergo any type of discomfort, and that they should all roam free and wild and never be domesticated. Okay, that's animal rights. Animal welfare acknowledges, and I'll kind of like be very transparent with you, like what I believe is a biblical charge that we have of animal husbandry to care for these animals. I believe the Bible tells us that we have to care for these animals, and it's our responsibility to do something. We honor God by caring for animals. And so that's animal welfare, that we believe that these animals feel pain. We believe that they need to be treated with respect. We also believe that they exist for our use. And whether that be food or industry, that these animals exist for our use. And with that comes responsibility to care for them. So you guys have cows and roping steers and otherwise. How much does one cost?
Right now, they're not cheap.
Nothing's cheap right now. How much does a roping steer cost?
Like little freshies that are 380, maybe 400 pounds. You're looking between $600 and $700.
Okay, that's a good chunk of money. That's twice my car payment, right? Like that's a good chunk of money. So do you think that it's reasonable or logical that someone that makes their living working with these animals and have paid, $700 for this animal, that they, out of just arrogance and violence, would want to harm that animal and make it incapable of competing and doing its job?
Not at all.
No, not even a little bit, right? And so I think sharing that information and these data points with people who are animal rights advocates is helpful and impactful. They just don't understand the industry, and they don't understand the love and respect that we have for our animals. So animal rights, I'll just say, will always and forever be an issue. We're seeing some things in California specifically. California is normally the bellwether for some of these types of bills and legislation. Canada also. The Calgary Stampede has some of the most stringent animal welfare rules governing it, and I think that's a good thing. I think we need to have strict rules in our industry that govern that we are very adherent to. And I think that helps tell our story about how much we care about these animals. Another thing that we're seeing a lot of right now is drugs in animals, specifically CBD, THC, and otherwise. So in Utah this year, we allowed a bill to pass that lets vets talk about the benefits of CBD in horses with their clients. Now, they can't prescribe it, they can't recommend it, but they can talk about the benefits of CBD in their horses. But what is the body that makes all the rules around? It's for English horses, it's for rodeo, it's for high school rodeo and 4-H. It's a whole bunch of other industries. They all subscribe to this one industry's standards and rules, and I think it's WEFC. Someone in the comments can correct me if I'm wrong. But that industry has said that we should not be using CBD in our horses. I will just tell like my personal story and like my personal beliefs. My horses do really well on CBD. I have even used THC on my horses, my race horses. It works extremely well. My horses are happy. They are healthy. Their body condition's amazing. They perform well. They run well. They don't have anxiety and stress and pre-run jitters. My horses perform very well on that. There are tons of benefits to it. And California is very strict about, what can be utilized, and these sanctioning bodies that determine all the rules that we have to abide by and rodeo and otherwise. I think that it's just like with people. These pharmaceutical companies, they have a lot of power in human pharmaceuticals. And when they're not the ones manufacturing the drugs, they sometimes get banned or they get overlooked or they get demonized. And so it's funny to me that we can use butanamine, Lasix, all these other things on our animals and even worse, but CBD somehow is outlawed. So that's just like my soapbox for the day. That's it. I'll step down now, but that's kind of how I feel about it. We're seeing a lot of regulations and laws around can you or can you not use CBD in your horses.
That's good to know. We got a question from a viewer, Ashley Osborne, for you, Renae, that says, Renae, what advice would you have for someone who wants to help drive the horse industry in their local area? The marketing in our local area is lacking, and there isn't a lot of corporate or business backing it or common knowledge.
It's such a great question. So depending on where you live, I would start locally. I would reach out to your local mayor and then county commissioners. Those people have so much power, especially if there's a rodeo or any type of equine event sanctioned in your community. If you have an equestrian facility in your community, those people are the ones that fund it. They decide if it gets to stay open. They get to decide what the fees are to use it, who gets to have events there. Those people are wildly powerful. Mm-hmm. And so start with them. And you can, usually find their contact information online. The next thing I would say to do is Google your state representative and your state senator. Introduce yourself. Tell them your story. Tell them what's important to you and tell them about the impact that horses have had in your life and in the economy. And you can even talk about like how much money you spend every year. That's important. Dollars speak. The citation that Cole read of how much money is spent, a lot of people overlook that and the compounding exponential effect that has in our economy. Politicians are driven by economic arguments also. So I would kind of share with them your story and then ask them what's going on in our community. What do you see coming down the pipeline? Do we have threats to our way of life? Or is there going to be a problem with what we're doing? Zoning also. Are you going to put in apartments next to the horse arena? And then the apartments are going to complain about dust, even though the horse arena was there before. And then they're going to have to shutter the horse arena because all these residents paying property tax are ticked off about dust and horses whinnying. So I would start building that relationship. My other strong admonition to everyone listening is you got to vote. Like, you don't get to complain. You don't get to whine. You don't get to file these complaints on Facebook if you are not voting. Vote often, vote frequently. There are primary campaigns, there are municipal campaigns, there's presidential years, the caucus nights. Are y'all attending your caucus nights? There's no reason not to. Attend your caucus night. Get involved and share your story. Other industries are powerful because they're showing up. We need to show up more.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah. Got a lot of couch coaches, probably, right?
A lot of keyboard warriors out there.
Yeah.
Well, I think as a whole, like, I'm not a guy that wants to go be involved in that type of stuff, go to the caucuses, go to city council meetings and that, but
why?
I think that's a platform that like Renae said, being educated on. I think if we're more educated on that platform, it'd be a little different. Can you I would just think about this when can you imagine if there's there's a really important conference going on, and if you gave a kid a microphone, if you gave Lander a microphone, that platform, and he comes in with that microphone, that platform, he's going to scream and yell. He's going to make a lot of noise. I think when we give certain platforms to people in certain spots with rodeos, I think that's what's harmful. They're getting the squeaky wheel is getting the grease.
Yeah. In order to prevent that from happening,
Sure,
you got to have the people that are you've got to outnumber the people that are anti what you're doing with people that are advocating for what you're doing. So my point was, like, I'm not the type of person that looks for the caucuses to go to or the city council meetings, not because I'm too busy. It's just like, I guess that's not my comfort zone, I guess. And I feel like, and the reason I say that is I feel like that's 90% of the guys I know, 90% of the guys that come over to the house and rope, they're in the same boat. They're like, that's not for me. But it needs to be if we want to have a say. And if we want to have a vote, not vote, I mean, everyone gets to vote, but if we want our opinion to be voiced, you got to be there. You really do. And you got to go in groves and you got to go in numbers, and not to be intimidating by any means, but just to show that this is the support for these things. You know, if you're not there to support it, they're not going to see you.
So just being better educated on that certain subject or platform then.
Yeah.
Because
It's all about being educated. It's about showing up, and it's about advocating appropriately, screaming, shouting. I think we've all seen a deterioration in discourse in our country, and I don't think that benefits anyone. I don't think it makes our country better. I think it makes it worse.
You don't see Cowboys burning down Target.
You don't see Cowboys burning down Target. I think that well-informed, passionate people who can speak politely and with enthusiasm and passion are the ones that get things done. And so the people that are influential right now in our industry are the people that show up. And when Cowboys and Cowgirls aren't showing up, we don't have a voice. We're abdicating our voice to those who show up. And I don't think those are the people that we want to be abdicating authority in our industry to. And so we have to show up, and you have to show respect. And, I'll just say this, and it's maybe not a popular opinion, but politicians aren't bad people. They inherently aren't bad people. They take a lot of flack, and it's hard. And most of them don't make hardly any money. They normally lose money by being an elected official. Now, I'm not talking about federally, but I am talking about more locally and even at the state level, that they want to do what's right. And so when someone comes up to them and says, you dirty, rotten sucker, how dare you let this thing happen? They're going to tune you out. They're not going to listen. Why would they? I mean, I wouldn't if someone came to me just sort of arms flailing and taking shots at me, but someone who can be respectful and polite and intelligently convey their opinion is so effective. I'll tell you this really funny story that happened at the Capitol a couple years is they were debating this bill about midstream access. Now, like, water rights are very complicated, and waterway access for fishermen and otherwise is very, very complicated. Where does private property end on a shoreline if you have like a lakefront or a riverfront home? And then the middle of the stream, when that's a public resource, that water is a public resource. And so they were debating this bill. You had all these fishermen that were just avid, wonderful fishermen that showed up to Capitol Hill in their waders. And they had like fish nets over their shoulders. They were the cutest thing I've ever seen. But they all showed up in droves in waders, and they were very polite. And they were effective. And they were also passionate about their issue. They cared about it deeply and about preserving kind of this open country and community resources and waterways. And they won. They were effective. And you had a whole bunch of rich property owners that all had well-paid lobbyists that were advocating the other side. And guess who won? The passionate, well-organized, polite group of citizens in their adorable waders on Capitol Hill. It just like warmed my heart and soul to see that happen.
That's
Give me a lot of faith in our process.
Cool. I'm glad you shared that, because I think that should entice people that if an issue does come up, that's how it needs to be handled.
So here's a question. Renae, here's a question.
Now, before you ask your question, why is there no air horn? Why are we not doing giveaways?
We're not in the studio. We all got to the studio. Bryce got to the studio, and there was no power because that substation got taken out. So we're like, crap, we got to go to the office. And we forgot the air horn.
No.
Lad's on jet lag. I'm afraid really bad. I'm afraid if we air horn Lad, he might have a heart attack. He's got like 4 rock stars, some mountain ops in his system. If we jolt him, we'd have to bring him back to life.
He's been working in the Foreign Legion. Okay, well, we're gonna figure this out. Otherwise, we're gonna do like an Instagram giveaway or something. Because
I would love to do a giveaway. Let's give away a grooming kit. Let's give away our grooming kit and what else can we give away, Bryce? We're gonna let Renae give them away to 2 of her followers.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
A toolkit, and a grooming kit. You choose. You get their info. You send it to us, and we'll get it shipped out to them.
Game on. Deal. Are we doing the what's in the grooming kit? What's in it?
Yeah.
Grooming kit. We've got our Bryce. I'm on the spot. I'm sitting here wondering what lads. We got our shampoo, conditioner, detangler. That's all we got in our grooming kit. No, the toolkit's got our brush. Shampoo, conditioner, detangler, and our toolkit. You're going to get a tail bag, mane and tail brush, a measuring kit, a measuring tape kit, and our BioMane grading tape.
I like it. Thanks, guys. This will be fun. I love the
exciting.
detangler.
We'll let you pick out your winners. That detangler's great, huh?
That's pretty nice. Listen, we have horse manes, but I also have a mane. I'd be lying if I told you I've never used a detangler on myself or the BioMane brush.
I use it on my little girl all the time.
Real cowgirls, they use a BioMane brush at rodeos. They do.
Oh, yeah. My little girl's hair gets snarled and out of control. And she's got not thin hair, but it's really, really fine hair. It's thick, but it's really fine. And, man, that detangler works so well on that type of hair.
Yeah, mine's the same way. Mine's really fine. This blonde, and I bleach it, and I do all sorts of terrible things to it. But I have a lot of it, and so it's kind of the same thing. So that detangler is pretty good. Look, my horses are like my children. I don't have kids yet, but my horses are my children. And so anything I use on them, I try to use on myself and see what's really good and what's not. And BioMane might be the best example of something that I've tried that my horses also have. So this one time, my friend Kelly Collier, professional barrel racer, NFR qualifier Kelly Collier, was staying at my house, and we were doing a trailer tour of her really fancy, awesome, custom build LQ, and she was showing me her different feed and stuff, and it was like, yeah, awesome BioMane. And then I was asking her, just joking, have you ever tried it? And she's like, well, no. Well, let's try it right now. So I bet her. And she tried it, and then I was like, well, I can't leave her hanging, so I did too. So we both tried BioMane one time. Have you guys ever tried it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course you have. And what does it taste like?
Like grain. It's dry.
That's why I had such an exceptional beard for a long time.
Yeah.
I think you probably use the detangler in your beard, don't you?
I did, when we were sampling, I did try it, but then I cut it before it all came out, so.
Okay. Well, listen.
When we do shows like trade shows, or we've got a booth at an event, and not to sound like I'm stereotyping, but 90%, there's people that'll come by, not even say anything to us, reach in, grab a little handful, and you think they're going to look at it as they walk away. They grab a little handful, and as they're walking away, you notice them just 90% of them are 65, 70 years and older.
That's amazing. I love it.
But it's the older generation that's like, hey, I'm going to try this out. And all the younger people are like, gross, I'm not trying that. But it's those older people that grew up on the milk bone dog treats.
That's right. They'd go to the old co-ops, and if their grain bag was open, there was some corn in there. My grandpa would have us do that as kids. That's
My grandma talked about they had a big open barrel of bran in their barn, and they would just go get a handful, and they just eat bran out of this open barrel. But then she's like, years later, I realized it was open. There were mice and bugs running across it. I guess that's why she's got a strong immune system. But
strong immune system across the whole board for the kids in the country, usually.
While we're talking about Yee Yee and Yeehaw and our awesome patrons at the county fair, maybe we need to start a beard oil BioMane line for just those who want to have a luxurious beard or a luxurious mane when they go to the county fair and the rodeo. Business idea. There we go. You're welcome. Hey, while we're on the subject, when can I expect a blonde shampoo? I'd be using more of your blonde shampoo your shampoo on my hair if it were like purple. I need that in my life. In my horse's tails, I use like a purple shampoo when they have white tails. Am I spilling some beans I shouldn't be?
No, we look at it. If you keep it in the dang tail bag, it won't get yellow, Renae.
We'll let Bryce get bombarded by messages for people also agreeing with that.
You just made Bryce's job harder. He's over there just like, oh my gosh, shut up.
Sorry, I'll stop. I'll back to you.
It's coming down the hatch. I don't know how soon for that one, just because like our existing shampoo, conditioner, detangler, they work they're mild as far as how they treat the hair and damage to the hair. There's no damage. They're a mild shampoo, but they're very, very strong, if that makes sense. Like, they work extremely well, but they don't cause damage or you're not torturing that hair by any means. A heavy duty shampoo a lot of times will strip nutrients out of the hair because you're trying to strip the dirt and strip the debris out of that hair. Ours doesn't do that. So that reason I say that is that's the difficulty in using a whitening type shampoo, is because there's a lot more chemical makeup to it in order to, I don't want to say bleach that hair, but to bring those stains out. So that's a hurdle that we'll have to get over when we get to in developing a whitening shampoo. I'll say that much on it.
I'll just say, like, even for my own mane, since I equate everything I do to what my horses do, is like I don't use the purple shampoo every wash. I'll use it like every second or every third wash for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
They can be really harsh. They can dry out your hair. They can make it really brittle, especially with someone that has fine hair like I do. Yeah. So, yeah. No, I hear you for sure. I'm looking for business opportunities.
That's great. Here. We appreciate where your mind's at. We like it. We like your opinion. When we do get those products, you're someone that we use to try them out and get some good feedback from. So
we'll test them on Stryker. We'll test them on Elvis. We'll test them on me. Just like all my products.
That's great.
Lad, I miss your beard, though. I feel like that was the perfect thing to have when you were just at the Ukrainian Foreign Legion. Where was it you were?
Just barely.
Yeah.
I was over in Kyrgyzstan, Central Asia. I was very far away from Ukraine and Russia. I don't know how many time zones, but we were a ways away.
But you were saying that you had to kind of avoid airspace and stuff. Is that right?
That's what we were hearing, just to keep everything safe over there. But
because that's your second time over there, right, Ladden? When you went the first time, you were routed, I think, through Moscow or somewhere, weren't you?
No, it was this. I think it was the same. It was the same thing, but there was a kid that was with us that was kind of explaining like the flight pattern, why we were going in a different spot, and it made sense with everything happening over there. So, but we never felt. I mean, the whole time over there, we were never worried or threatened by what's happening right now. Not to get into everything that's going on over there politically, but we were 100% safe, and man, what a very welcoming country.
Lad was over there doing that. We talked about it on a previous podcast, that Coke Brew game over in Kyrgyzstan. That's probably what next week's podcast is going to be. Is we're going to let Lad have a week of getting rid of jet lag so he can.
Yeah, I'm way too fresh right now on that whole deal.
But probably next podcast is going to be a recap on that, because the two games that he played are full on YouTube, and we're gonna take clips and show Lad, and it's. Lad he won't tell you, but Lad was a celebrity over there.
I live for this. I love seeing the pictures of it too, Lad, on Instagram and otherwise. That looks intense. And again, I love all these different types of horse industry and horse life that you guys are bringing together. And, we may be sort of competitive between like, oh, yes, snooty jumpers and, we're the redneck rodeo people, but at the end of the day, like, we all love horses and we all love competition. And isn't that such an amazing uniting theme? And it's so cool that you guys have this podcast to kind of bring all those things together.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
What was cool is
bringing it
the
up.
USMC actually helped sanction and function this whole trip that we got to take, and that was kind of the bridge between our countries. As we're able to talk about the relationship we have with horses, how we have a completely different discipline, equipment, and compared to what they have in Kyrgyzstan, but it doesn't matter because we all ride horses. We're all, cowboys on one side, and they play coke brew. That's their rodeo version on the other side, and it's the same camaraderie. And it was, I'm excited to talk more about it. But to pinpoint a few things that I had over there, like we're talking about full animal rights and everything, it's the people over there. There's not much of a platform as far as people speaking negatively against their sport. Everyone's very in tune with their culture and their heritage, and so we didn't see any of the animal rights or anything like that over there. So it's interesting what's going on in our country and sport with what they're doing with rodeo, and we're only a few hundred years old. They've been doing this for thousands of years, and it is growing and growing. So I'm just trying to, I guess, like I said, pinpoint my thoughts of what they're doing and what we're doing, and how can we kind of see eye to eye and improve the industry, keep improving our industry.
Yeah, the pictures I saw, I only saw guys. Were there any girls competing in Cowgirl?
Play the sport?
Yeah.
No.
Should we start a league over here? Yeah, well, let's start a league. Listen, I'll do anything. I've done like 4-H, right? I've done like show ponies. I've done reining horses and now barrel horses. And you guys, I don't know if you remember or not, but I did ride a
You did ride saddle bronc.
I rode a saddle bronc at the during the American Patriot Tour. So, I'd love hearing what you're saying about like the embassy. It helped kind of organize this. But yeah, like the American Patriot Tour is such a cool thing, and it's allowed my dear friend Jenna to travel kind of the globe and share our love of horses in these different places and these different cultures. And yeah, I ride saddle bronc. I spurred them for 90, so I can retire now at the top of my game. But
yeah,
how about a little coke brew game at the Sun Bowl?
Let's do it.
I brought back the saddle. I've got some equipment, so we're. I think we need to have we need to have the very first scrimmage, a legit scrimmage.
We'll do it at my house.
Do it at the Sun Bowl.
Okay,
right,
count me in. I want to be on this inaugural team. I want to be on Team BioMane for Coke Brew. Wait, do we need a goat? Should we find a goat for this?
I don't know
if we're going to be able to get away with the goat here in the States.
We can make a dummy. We can use that. We'll just get a 70-pound dummy that's full of sand, and we'll just kind of work with that for now.
Fine. Okay, deal. But still count me in. I want to play.
Okay.
No,
there's some cool stuff coming up. There's some cool stuff coming up on as far as international with the horses and different shows coming up. I'm excited to touch on, but yeah.
Well, I'm subscribed to the podcast, so I'm gonna eagerly wait for you to talk about this.
We will. We're a week away from that. Well, Renae, I appreciate you being on the podcast. This has been great. I think you've had a lot of great insight that when we repost, we're going to really highlight that and have a way for us to be better as an industry and be heard more and more presence as an industry. So I appreciate you being on.
Yep.
Thanks.
Is there anything else you can say, Renae, as far as being educated more, not just about meeting with our local community leaders, but is there anything else that you can think of now that Cowboys can do to keep helping grow our industry?
I would say that we need to do kind of the platform that you guys are doing. And I know not everyone can host their own podcast, but I think sharing things online and social media. And again, I don't mean to be too political, but when we see what's going on in Ukraine and Russia and even China and kind of the censored media that they have, in the U.S., we don't necessarily have censored media, but it's, again, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So as much as we can share from a first-person perspective, our lifestyle and the importance of it, and the great care that we take to care for our animals and sharing these journeys with our friends and with our family and with our followers, no matter how big or small your platform may be, that's really critical. And I just want to offer to any of your followers or your listeners, if you feel like there's something going on in your community that you think can be better, or you want to get involved in politics but you don't really know how, please reach out to me. Send me a message on Instagram, shoot me an email, reneecowley@gmail.com. Any way that you want to reach out to me, I would be so happy to get you sort of plugged in and maybe give you advice and tips on the best way to enact that change in your community. But that's just what makes our country so wonderful and so great. And I'm so grateful to live here and to be an American, that one person can have such a dramatic influence and change in their community. And that's the way it needs to be, and that's the way it should be. And from a cowboy and cowgirl perspective, we need to be doing more of it. And I want to help anyone who would like to take that first step.
That's great advice.
Well said.
Renae, thanks again.
Yeah.
It's great to see you guys. Thanks for having me on. Thanks everyone for listening.
Appreciate it. Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Scoop. We'll see you next week.